My daughter doesn't want her brother at the wedding because he would embarrass her due to his disability, but now I embarrass her by canceling the venue. The other day something very strange happened, and I need to share it with someone anonymously because it's easier that way. Well, my daughter is getting married to a fiancé she has been with for more than 3 years. When I found out she was getting married, I was as emotional as any good mother would be. It was wonderful to know that my daughter would walk down the aisle. I received an invitation in the mail the other day, but the invitation was addressed only to me. There was none for my son, who lives with me. He has a disability, and I take care of him full-time, and eventually, I will take him to a specialized center, but as long as I can, I will take care of him myself. There should have been an invitation for him in the mail with mine, of course. I suppose he could be my plus one, but my daughter is inviting a lot of people to the wedding, and the invitation doesn't mention that a plus one is allowed. So, he should have received an invitation. I wish I could talk to my daughter about this. She has been busy planning the wedding, so I haven't had many opportunities to talk to her. Part of me believes it might have been a mistake by the post office, that it got lost because it was sent separately, but another part suspects that she really didn't want to invite her brother. The more I think about this second option, the less it makes sense. You see, I raised my children as a single mother. It wasn't what I expected for my life, but life sometimes gives us this kind of thing, and we have no choice but to accept it. I married my husband when I was in my early 20s, after dating him for a while. We wanted to finish college and establish our careers before getting married. That's what we did, and everything seemed to be on track, but it was very quick when I got pregnant. Especially because we weren't planning it, although we weren't being careful either, so we received it with open arms because we already had jobs, a place to live, and were married. My husband also wanted to be a father, so I didn't have to convince him of anything. On the contrary, he was more excited than I was. I remember this with some sadness because we were so happy at that moment, and we didn't even know it. We appreciate things in time, and it's truly a shame. A few years after our daughter was born, my son was born, and we were also very happy, but there were complications during the birth. As he grew old enough, we realized he had an intellectual disability. It was just one of those things that happens, but I never felt ashamed of him, and neither did my husband. These are just things that happen. The important thing was that he was with us, and that was the only thing that mattered to me. He just needed a little more love and care due to his disability, and there was nothing wrong with that. A few years after my son was born, I lost my husband. I was afraid to think that I would have to care for my children alone, without him, but I knew I had to do it because they needed me. My husband had life insurance, so we lacked nothing. The only thing I could do was stay strong and try to be present for my children. Raising 2 kids alone is hard, and when one of them has a disability, it becomes even more complicated. But what I never did was make my daughter feel like she had to take care of her brother. That was my responsibility, not hers. They have always been very close, my daughter and my son. They used to spend a lot of time together whenever they could, but when my daughter entered adolescence, she started distancing herself from her brother. It was normal for her to do so at that age, but my son didn't understand, he couldn't comprehend. And no matter how much I tried to explain to him, this led her to say painful things to her brother. Sometimes she would call him names or make fun of his intelligence. It disturbed me to see this happening because she had never been so cruel to him before. This happened several times until the point where I had to yell at her. When we met her future in-laws for the first time, something similar happened. We were having fun, and my son said something that made her future mother-in-law roll her eyes. She made a sarcastic comment, and everyone laughed. I spoke to my daughter privately after the event, and she just said it wasn't a big deal. That wasn't the last straw, but it was very concerning. I tried to limit interactions after that time, but the in-laws didn't seem interested in getting to know my son better or seeing him again. My daughter seemed fine with that, and my son felt hurt. Their relationship never seemed to recover, but I never thought she wouldn't invite her brother to the wedding. It was simply something I never imagined would happen. As you can see, I've always tried to raise my daughter the best way I could, and I never put too much pressure on her. It's not that she's resentful now because I made her take care of her brother or something like that. What do you think? Am I letting my mind play tricks on me and jumping to conclusions too quickly? Maybe my daughter just forgot to send her brother an invitation or assumed I would take him. Or could it be something worse? I don't want to think that she could have done this on purpose. After all, she is my daughter, but with some of the things I've told you, it could be the case. Honestly, this hurts because of my son, because the two of them were close. I have so many pictures of them together, happy, enjoying time as siblings, and yet here I am, doubting my own daughter, something I never wanted to do. I think I'll leave this post here. I'll update you if I find out more. I just wanted to tell my story and see what other people have to say. I think the big question from my original post has already been answered. It turns out my daughter doesn't want to invite my son to the wedding, and that's why he didn't receive an invitation. The worst of the two options. Last week, I talked about how my daughter has been very distant from me, to the point where she sent me an invitation, but not to my son. When this happened, I felt torn between thinking it was suspicious and trying to understand why there was no invitation for my son as well. But then I read some comments here. Some people accused me of not being a good mother for blaming my daughter for something that, according to them, meant nothing. Well, yes, I suppose it could be that my daughter just sent me an invitation because I issued it as a family invitation rather than a personal one. I wanted to think that too, but that's not the case. You all insisted that I talk to her, but I didn't want to think about that possibility because I felt the truth would be harder than I imagined, and now I know I wasn't wrong. I talked to my daughter once and for all to find out what was going on. At first, she just said the party wasn't for children, even though my son isn't a child anymore, trying to downplay the situation. But then she directly told me the reason why she didn't want her brother at the wedding. Apparently, it's fine for me to go because I'm not an embarrassment, but if her brother shows up, she will be completely embarrassed. According to my daughter, the best thing is that he just doesn't go, because it will be hard for him and for everyone else involved. She tried to make it seem like a favor for her brother, though it was very wrong. I tried to make her reason with me and told her that he's her brother, not a pet or an object she doesn't want at her wedding. People would also wonder why her brother wasn't there, since it's no secret that she has a brother with a disability. But my daughter said something I never thought I would hear from her. I don't want someone like him at my wedding. She also used an insult I won't repeat here, because it's quite horrible for people who suffer from the same thing as my son. At that moment, anger took over me. It was so tempting to slap her, but I held back. I told her that if there was any other reason not to invite him, I would understand, but why shame him? This is not right. My daughter got angry, insulted me, and stormed out, saying she didn't want to talk to me. Fortunately, my son was upstairs playing with his things and didn't hear anything. I would understand if he had heard, yes, at least part of it, and it would hurt him to know that his own sister is ashamed of him. I understand that it's her wedding and she can invite and uninvite whoever she wants, but we're talking about her own brother, so it doesn't seem fair to me. I would understand if her brother had done something wrong or caused a problem, or if she were upset with him because I forced her to care for him when he lived here, but I never asked for anything like that. What worries me the most is that all of this started after my daughter met her fiancé. Probably, her in-laws played an important role in all of this, and I don't know if her fiancé is involved too. I think I should ask him, can someone change so much just to fit into another family? This is not the daughter we raised with my husband, and this is not how we raised her. Well, I'm trembling and at a loss for words. I'm updating only 2 days after my last post. So, sorry for posting so much in this sub, but I had to write this and get it off my chest. The last time I spoke to you, I mentioned that I was going to ask my daughter the real reason she didn't want her brother at the wedding, even though I knew I shouldn't. I directly asked if her in-laws had something to do with it. I was convinced that they were behind it all. My daughter answered me bluntly that yes, they suggested it, but it wasn't just them. She also, for a long time, has felt ashamed of her brother. She told me that when she started high school, having him around felt bothersome. But through all of this, even though it's still pretty bad, at least the in-laws are a little better than she is. Her in-laws, or rather, her future in-laws, mentioned that it might be best if he sat in the back. I told her that would have been better than just not inviting him, but my daughter is convinced she's doing the right thing. We can say her in-laws influenced her, but she is still the main one responsible for this matter, and I pointed that out to her. I didn't just write this here because it's how I feel. I think her in-laws are awful, But she is much worse. She got angry, insulted me, and told me that if I have such a problem with her brother not going, then I don't need to go either. Anyway, I didn't plan to go without my son. I was going to leave him at home with someone to take care of him and go to the wedding. No, that wasn't going to happen. When I first found out that my daughter was getting married, I never imagined it would turn into this. I suppose it's my fault for not raising her with better values, but I don't know how I ruined this. She was never spoiled, because we never had much to do that. Despite how complicated it was raising her, I always tried to be there for her. I helped her with homework at night, and even picked out the best dress for her prom. I'm even paying for the wedding venue. Speaking of which, when I talked to some of my friends, they told me I shouldn't pay for the wedding venue. I've already left the deposit to hold it, but I think it's better to cut my losses. My daughter asked me to do this, and at first, I accepted gladly because I thought I was giving her and her fiancé a wedding gift. But now I wonder if I should go ahead with the gift. It was also a gift from her brother, but neither of them is invited, so I see it as a waste of money. I don't feel good about doing it. If my daughter can't treat me with respect, nor her brother, why should I pay? I've thought a lot about it, and my answer is that I've decided I won't pay for the wedding venue. I was willing to give this with no problem, but everything has a limit, and this was mine. I know my daughter won't be happy when she finds out I canceled the venue, but I've also decided I won't tell her. I don't think she deserves even that. After all, she didn't bother to tell me that my son wasn't invited. I don't understand why I should tell her now. And it's not for revenge, it's simply because she made her decision, and I made mine. That's how simple things are. Now, my friends think I'm doing the right thing, and I'm hoping to see everyone's opinions too. She can find another venue, but she'll have to do it in a hurry. At no point did my daughter come to talk to me calmly about this. She didn't try to discuss it maturely or find common ground. She just yelled at me, insulted me, and made excuses. My son is confused because we won't be going to the wedding anymore. I did my best to explain the situation to him. He seems okay with the change. Of course, I didn't tell him the whole truth, because why would I do that if it would just break his heart? The best I can do is simply tell him that there were changes, and we're not going anymore. My daughter has already found out that I wasn't going to pay for the wedding venue, which made her call me and beg me to change my mind. But I refused. It's been more than a week since my last post. My daughter was expecting to do a tour of the venue and start planning how her big day would be. Well, the venue owner must have informed her that the wedding won't be held there, because she called me demanding to know what was going on. I had to explain that I had canceled the payment and that I wasn't going to cover the venue's costs. Now, if she wants to get married there, she'll have to make her in-laws pay for it. I wouldn't be surprised if they refuse to help her, because they seem like the type of people who aren't willing to give anything to others. But I didn't say that to my daughter, because I didn't want to make her even angrier. Not that she wasn't already furious. My daughter started yelling at me, and when she realized that wasn't working, she started begging me to change my mind. She told me that if I really cared about her, I would pay for the venue, that it was the least I could do since she's my only daughter. And then she said something that completely broke me. She told me that my son was never going to get married, so it made sense to give her everything she needed for her wedding. That was the cruelest comment I've ever heard her say. At that moment, I felt like I was talking to a stranger. I didn't recognize her. This version of her, I insist, is very different from the one I knew. It seems like she was replaced by the most psychopathic and heartless version you could imagine. After listening to her complain and cry that this couldn't be happening, and that she had to find a way to fix it, I hung up. But she kept calling me and texting me non-stop. Don't think I didn't give her a chance. I told her many times that the only thing she could do to fix things was apologize, but she wouldn't. She kept insisting that she was right, as if she were proud of what she was saying. Some of you asked how my son is, and again, he's fine. He misses his sister, but she had already started distancing herself from him for a while, so it's not like this is new to him. I had to explain that this is just part of life, that she's growing up and following her own path. But to help distract him, I decided to have his birthday party at the same venue my daughter had chosen for her wedding. Now, I know this might seem a little petty, but I want to make use of the venue that's already reserved, and I want to use the money for something that can do something good for someone who deserves it. I believed my daughter deserved it, but I was wrong. She doesn't know yet. She just thinks the reservation fell through and won't be available for her wedding anymore. If any of you could leave a happy birthday message for my son, please do so. I will probably read it to him when his birthday comes. It's not exactly on the same day as the wedding, it's a few weeks before, but we will use the venue to celebrate in style. My daughter also involved her in-laws, who have been contacting me non-stop trying to come to a solution, but I just told them I can't do anything because I decided to cancel the reservation. They say I was very unfair in what I did, but I don't take anything they say seriously. I don't even know them. What I want to know is if I am handling this the right way. Some of you commented on my last post saying that I'm a horrible person and that I don't deserve to be a mother, while others told me I did the right thing, that this was the only way to make my daughter react. But now I think she will never change. I think I've accepted the fact that, as she is now, it's unlikely that my daughter and I will ever speak again. It would be possible if she ever changed and became the sweet person she used to be, but with her father-in-law whispering things in her ear, I don't see that happening. If you have any comments or advice, please share them with me. I don't mind whether they are positive or negative. I'm used to it. I'm serious when I say I want to hear all opinions because it helps me see the situation more clearly. Hello everyone, I'm sorry it took so long to update, but don't worry, I'm back. To summarize, my daughter was so furious that she tried to steal a check from my checkbook and tried to cash it at the bank. Now she's not getting married anymore, but for those who want to read everything that happened, keep reading. It's been more than 3 weeks since my last post. I know, 3 whole weeks, which is a long time for me when I got you used to quicker posts. I've been focusing on myself, determined to stay disconnected and just focus on my life. However, I finally decided to go online and see what was going on. I saw that there were many comments, and at first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to respond to any of them. I read them, as promised, then left, thinking I didn't need to come back with more updates. But then my daughter tried to do something even lower and surprised me. I knew she was desperate, but I never thought she would go this far. At first, I believed she would ask her in-laws for help to cover the wedding expenses. I was convinced they would do it, but apparently, that wasn't the case. Her in-laws refused to pay for the venue for some reason. Although I know they're not short on money, they simply didn't want to help. Maybe they thought that, since I'm the mother of the bride, I was supposed to cover the costs, which is a somewhat outdated thought. But well, who am I to argue? Now, let me tell you what my daughter did. She came to my house to see my son when I wasn't there because I was at work. And well, my son, being who he is, let her in without hesitation. He was with his babysitter, and I didn't think I should be suspicious of anything. I know that was my mistake. She just heard my son say he wanted to see his sister, and she let it pass. She really thought her sister just wanted to see him, but what she really did was enter my office and take a check from my checkbook to pay for another venue to get married. It's hard to believe that my own daughter would go as far as committing fraud, but when I found out, I realized she could do this and much more. And based on the fact that I'm telling you this now, you can guess that she didn't manage to cash the check. I was horrified when I received a call from the bank the other day telling me that someone claiming to be me had tried to cash a check. My daughter thought she could get away with it, but I guess she was so determined to get the money that she tried to pass herself off as me. Well, before I could even decide whether to file a complaint or not, I found out that my daughter isn't getting married anymore. Her fiancé left her, saying he couldn't marry a thief, someone who shamed his family. Not that I'm happy my daughter isn't getting married anymore, but well, things are as they are. And you know what? Maybe I'll file a complaint if she didn't learn before. Maybe it's time for her to learn that actions have consequences. Now it's time to tell you how these months have been for me. I owe you a lot of information. I hope this satisfies your curiosity. As I like to start with a summary for the impatient, I'll say that I filed a complaint. We celebrated my son's birthday. The birthday party was magnificent. My son had so much fun, with music, games, some friends, and family. The only person who missed the big event was my daughter, but because she didn't get the invite. I don't think she wanted it. My son asked if she was coming, but I said no because she was very busy. I couldn't think of anything better to say to him. I can't say that his sister doesn't want him. I know my daughter found out about the party and the place where we held it because we posted pictures on Instagram because my son wanted to. However, she didn't say anything to me, didn't try anything, and didn't complain to anyone. It's an improvement because at least we don't have her drama around us. And about the theft, I filed a complaint against her. But if you're one of those who believe I was a bad mother for all this, you shouldn't worry too much because she was only given a fine of $1,000 and some community service. It's a misdemeanor, so I didn't expect much from that either. I just wanted to show her that you don't play with these things. If she doesn't want my son or me in her life, that's fine. We can go our separate ways. At least my son has gotten used to the idea that she's no longer part of our lives. He asks about her less and less, and that makes everything easier. I'll miss reading your comments because that was the best part of all this, but at least I'll enjoy the last ones from this post. Goodbye.